guess, a Bible of architecture. I met a few people before who have come here because they're architects just to hear our next guest. And a huge round of applause, Greg Lynn.
Hey Greg, how you doing? You okay?
Thanks, Margo.
Greg, I'll let you do your presentation, but first of all, I want to understand why, I also asked to Roberto later, why an architect into this Piaggio fast forward? I mean, what an architect has to do with mobility is, I don't know, I don't understand. Sorry.
Well, I think you got to think about...
You're also big, so I didn't know if asking or not.
No, you have to think about cities to think about mobility. And what's really getting interesting is how things are bleeding from the city into buildings, big buildings, malls, airports, and small, lightweight devices like Piaggio makes are really blurring all those boundaries between the city, architecture, interiors. I think that's really becoming more continuous.
Important. All right, cool. Greg, I'll see you later.
Okay. Well, I'll start up here just so I can go downhill for the next few minutes. But it's very tough to follow Sasha. I didn't know that. There were some people I didn't want to go after. Now I know, don't go after Sasha. But my job with PFF is Chief Creative Officer. And so what I thought I would talk about a little bit are some hints about where design is going and where the shape of things to come is going to be thinking about materials, construction, manufacturing, and also objects that you don't expect to be smart becoming a little bit more intelligent. Now, unlike Sasha, I'm not a millennial. So I had to be introduced to a computer. And I've always found myself for the last 20 years right at the intersection of digital technology and the physical world. And for me, I've spent a lot of time thinking about how digital tools would change the way we build our buildings. And more recently, I've been getting a lot of questions from people. Why isn't my building similar to my telephone? Or why is something stupid like a building not smarter the way technology is? And so I'll talk a little bit about this intersection of the digital and the physical, both in how we make things, but also how we expect different things from the physical world. And I think people's expectations for buildings and spaces has really changed. So the first thing that I want to say is that when architects first got a hold of computers, and I feel that I'm authorized to say also industrial designers, probably even motorcycle designers, the first thing they did was make things complicated. So when we got the digital tools, we made more parts. Every part was different. Everything became complicated. And now, after 20 years of that, I've realized that's maybe not the point. Maybe the point of digital technology is to make fewer parts. And this idea of surface minimalism is something I've been thinking a lot about. So here's a couple projects which are separated by 10 years. This Korean Presbyterian church was one of the first buildings done with a digital set of construction documents for the structure. Every single piece of steel is a unique length. Every detail is a unique angle. Every single piece of the building is different. And the language of it was really a language of more parts and more complexity of parts. 10 years later, here are some other examples of things that are recent where instead of having more pieces and parts, we're trying to integrate everything into one surface. So the fireplace, the kitchen, even the handles to pull the drawers are all integrated into one surface. So here in the bathroom, you can see there's not even a sink. There's not even a handle for the drawer. It's all done with one surface. So I think this move in digital technology to make things complicated is a little bit over. at least for me. I'm tired of seeing digital things that look like a coral reef or some incredibly complicated construction. I'm more interested in digital technology, which reduces the number of points of contact and reduces the number of assemblies and stages for construction. And this is one of the things we're thinking about with PFF. How do you make an object with less pieces better? How do you put more function into fewer parts and pieces? And how do you do that using digital tools? The second thing is today, space is becoming a premium, but what you see in response to that in both architecture and transportation is oversized products. So the first thing I attack as an architect is the program brief, where every function has its own space. Like, that's the absolute worst way to think about design. And I try to attack redundancy and attack specialization like that. I was asked recently to design a house that was only 60 square meters in floor. And the idea that I had was, well, let's take 60 square meters of floor, but put 180 square meters of surface in it by rolling the house, so that you could live on 3 surfaces of the house. So to build the model, the first thing we had to do was get a robot that would let us study how you would roll a house around. So what you saw in that big room was a universal industrial robot. The next thing we had to do was then build our own custom robot to move a bigger model of that house. And then finally, we built the interface to control all that. So for me, the way to integrate technology is often to try to get something that wants to be very big, figure out how to get it smaller and smaller and more robust. And again, with PFF, if you come to our space in Cambridge, you'll see we have this kind of universal robot technology, which is, fairly elaborate, but then we try to get it simpler and simpler so we can have the machines to make things move be as interactive and elegant as possible. The other thing about getting things compact, it involves motion, and I'm very interested in integrating motion into the built environment. The second example I'm showing here is a series of pavilions for the world's largest design prize. It's the Index Award in Copenhagen. And they gave me the budget for the building, and the budget was, let's say, just X. And I looked, and the shipping costs in 1 year were 3 times the cost of building the buildings, because they were sending 13 shipping containers around the world every month. And I said to them, well, if I can make it smaller, can I have some of that logistical budget? So I managed to triple the construction cost. But overall, we saved the cost by half because we reduced all that logistical cost. So when you see that time lapse, that's the time lapse of 2 people assembling 8 pavilions in 2 days. And all 9 of the pavilions fit in 1 shipping container. So also, we started off thinking about building these in wood because everybody said wood was good for the environment. What we ended up building them in was carbon fiber because it was so lightweight and so compact that carbon was the best material for sustainability. In terms of buildings in motion, for me, this is really about what people expect from the built environment now and how they expect things to be dynamic. I very recently met with a company called Curbside, who also is at the intersection of digital and physical retailing. And they said they needed a prototype for 4,000 buildings across the United States where people could order things online and come pick them up at a shopping mall or at a big box retailer. And they had seen the rolling house, and that's why they came to me. And they said they'd like the building to be dynamic. So what we ended up designing is this structure, which is built in only 4 pieces, and it has a robotic, like periscope on the top that follows a cell phone signal in your car as you drive up to pick up your merchandise. So the whole task was to bring to the physical environment this sense of interactivity and also a sense that the building knows you when you come up to the building, and it actually expresses that physically in the interaction. In terms of construction, for me, there's been a huge change. In architecture, we really have been in the business of making drawings. We would produce a set of elaborate documents, deliver those documents to a third party, being a contractor, or even worse, a construction manager, and they would then be responsible for the construction. It involves a lot of steps, and it separates us very far from both from our clients and from manufacturing. With industrial objects, I've been looking at how to use rapid prototyping as a manufacturing tool and 3D printing as a manufacturing tool. So some of those images you saw were some 3D printed metal flatware that we did for Alessi, where we didn't have to make tools, we didn't have to manufacture in Korea, and also instead of starting off with 5 pieces of silverware, we could do all 52 at once because we were 3D printing it. This example, I decided that I wanted to have the fastest 40-foot boat in the world, and I'd never built a boat or designed a boat. But I went out and with a naval architect, designed and built, using a lot of 3D printing and manufacturing, pretty much the fastest 40-foot boat in the world. The way we did that is instead of having to make a lot of tools, we produced a lot of these things toollessly. Those images you saw there, all of those orange parts are all 3D printed nylon working components. You see us sailing at about 45 kilometers an hour. Those are under a huge structural load, but they're actually working parts that come right from a 3D machine. They didn't have to come from a tool and from a manufacturing technique. So the fact that somebody who's an amateur can start a company, make that, and those are all our competitors back there, actually achieve a thing which is high performance like that, is really driven by this change in manufacturing and technology. You don't have to be a big company to be producing these things. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about materials and ergonomics and how things are when you touch them and sit in them. For me, materials are really changing now, where in one object, you can continuously have that object go from hard to soft. And I've got a few examples of that. This chair I did for Vitra, I tried to reduce all the parts. I met with Rolf Fellbaum, who's a brilliant mentor, I would say, for designers. And I showed him a couple options of a chair. One was a chair which was digitally designed, as this was, and it was built out of maybe 200 or 300 pieces. And I said, it's innovative, it's digital, look at how complicated it is. He said, that's not innovation, making things complicated. Innovation is making it simple. So instead, we made a chair where instead of all of the legs and the back and the arms and the seat, we made it in 2 pieces, one soft piece, one hard piece. So 5 years later, we went back to Rolf and said, let's make a chair in 1 piece. So this is the world's lightest piece of seating, weighs about 6 ounces. It's made with carbon fiber tapes, and that chair can smash down and go in an envelope, so I could send it to you by FedEx, and it'll hold 2,000 pounds. So the idea that you can take something which used to be this heavy object, made out of a lot of parts and pieces, and make something out of one material that has hard elements and soft elements with structure only where you need it, and have that be light, strong, portable, and functional is really where I see the future of materials going, where instead of having, like say in a building, structure, exterior cladding, interior surfaces, building systems. You want to collapse that all into one sandwich or one shell, take advantage of all the properties of everything, and eliminate redundancy. And for me, the digital, when it first started, generated a lot of redundancy. And what's happened now with the digital, it's letting us get rid of all that extra mass, extra fat, and extra systems and make things much more refined, elegant, and consolidated. Thanks.
Wow, that was cool. I get it. Cool. I get
Look,
this one.
3 seconds.
You still have 3 seconds. We can.
That's not bad.
No, you were phenomenal. Come on, guys. Let's give it a big applause. It was really cool. I was blown my mind. Really, that was cool.
It's ridiculous, but
Really.
thank you.
I'll do 30 seconds recap of the most important things because.
Yeah, I talk fast, sorry.
Yeah, that was cool. Trend che mi sembra di capire: design minimalista, compatto,
minimalist
less
design,
is more, meno è
compact,
meglio,
less is more.
immobilità. I want the house,
Mobility.
the moving house.
Sure.
Okay. But is it possible to buy or not, or is it just a prototype?
No, it's a prototype.
Ok, prototype. Design e mobilità, uso delle stampanti 3D
Use
per
of 3D
stampare
printers
una serie di oggetti
to
incredibili
print a
e
series
poi
of
quest'ultimo
incredible
trend,
objects,
from
and
hard to
then
soft.
from
Dal
hard
duro
to
al
soft.
molle, in italiano suona un po' male, però
In Italian
meglio,
is
meglio
not so
molle che duro.
nice.
So il,
But soft is
I
better
don't
than
know, I
hard.
just did a big gap, sorry.
I don't know.
From hard to soft
Yeah, no, I
design
get
is
it.
a good trend. Okay, I don't know how to say. Good, great. Well, it was really fascinating. And do you have a 3D printing technology at Piaggio Fast Forward?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, we have a carbon 3D printer, and it was one of the first things we bought, actually.
Okay.
I would say before we even bought an office chair, we bought a carbon 3D printer for Mark Forged. So, in case you want to know where our priorities are.
One question about this, and then we catch the question from the audience. I don't know if everyone in this hall know exactly what kind of materials can 3D printing print.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of people think, okay, you can print, I don't know, plastic maybe, or,
Yep.
you know, what kind of materials you could print today?
We just printed some 3D titanium, like as big as you, like 3 structural pieces of titanium, so you can
Okay.
print metals. What's really, for me, the most exciting is with a 3D printer or laminating carbon like you see on the race
Right.
bike,
Yeah.
you only put the material where you need it. You only put the structure where you need it. So in this building, and it's nothing about this building, it's in every building, every piece of steel takes its worst case and just puts the material everywhere.
Okay.
It's terribly inefficient. Makes things very
Okay,
expensive
let's
and
talk
heavy.
about another Is the owner of the mall around? Okay, let's do it better, guys.
But 3D printing, it makes things strong, light, and cheap.
Sure.
And for me, that's what's most exciting about it.
And also, it kind of democratize the access. You don't need to be a huge farm.
It can
to,
be.
to create.
Definitely
prototypes
can
or-
be. And it can bring back a level of customization for all those places you touch and that are specific to your body. It means you can make those bespoke.
Okay, got it. All right, let's take the questions from the audience. I'll start to take you down there.
Yeah, let's walk.
How does the inclusion of new types of it? You are really big. How tall you are?
In 2 meters.
You say small is the new big, but okay.
So it's out of my control.
Oh, okay. How does the inclusion of new types of innovation, such as 3D printing, for example, could change the way people move? I like it.
Well,
Okay.
what's most interesting, I think, is if you have a big factory somewhere,
Right.
and people are having to buy the products from that factory, and you have to make tools, you have a different relationship with your customers, you have a different relation with your product than if you take some of that manufacturing and say put it in your dealership or put it at the repair location. So I think really it'll change the objects, but more importantly, it'll change the way we interact with objects, and it'll change the way we produce them and buy them. And it's really an important shift that's happening where you've got to think about a new kind of a factory, new kind of a dealership, and a new relationship with your customers. And those are the kinds of things PFF is thinking about.
All right.
Not just the product, but actually the whole chain of...
The whole chain. I read a book recently, I think from Jim Davis, and he was talking about what do you need to do to create a product that is accepted by people. Mm-hmm. And he was saying something like that there is a theory called the minimal counterintuitive theory, or something like that,
okay.
where basically, if you change too much, if you're too creative, if you put too many new things, people, they have problem to accept it, you know? But if you tweak it
Yep.
a tiny bit, then they go for big change. Do you think in architecture is the same thing, or you could, be ambitious and say, I do it in a totally different way now, period?
Well, my specialty is people with new problems.
Okay.
So, first job I ever got was for a Korean Presbyterian church. And they said, we're Koreans and we're Presbyterians.
So we have two problems.
Yeah, here's a list of everything we don't want. And they just said, we don't want a cathedral, we don't want a modern church. They told me what not to do, but they said, we have a new problem. If the latest thing I've built is that curbside pavilion, same thing. They said, we need a presence which is from the internet in the physical world.
Okay.
So my specialty is always new problems. I don't really do well with old problems.
Okay. Okay, let me take you on the other side. I want the other people to see you. Can you give me the next question, guys? Mobility allows us to go out to meet others, to expand our horizons. We have a philosopher here with this question. Okay, it has many different dimensions. What's the most important for you?
Well, I think it's not what's important for me. I think it's what's important in the world. And I really do think it's the size of things.
Okay.
I mean, we've been talking now for a few months about how cities like Milan are getting more and more congested and more traffic. And like Sasha was saying, if you want products on demand, it means there's more and more elements moving. So either things have to get smarter so they know where to be, or they have to get smaller, or they probably have to do both. Okay. And I think for me, the mobility problems are really how to make things intelligent and how to get them as small as you can get them. Because we need more, definitely more things on the infrastructure, which is very limited.
Got it. There was this, Seth Godin was saying, small is the new big, so it's true also in architecture. Next question, we have just a couple of minutes, and we just run through it. All right, this is in Italian, we'll translate it for you. Design is improving our life. Will the future have more accessible costs? Will the future be, cheaper to produce design?
Yeah, it's sometimes a shock to me how we're willing to pay 1,000 euros for a telephone, which to me would have been unthinkable. If you would have said 10 years ago, I'd say,
come on.
So many other things I'd spend 1,000. But I think if you can take the intelligence of that phone and put it into other things, you're immediately making them so much more valuable. And I really look forward to getting all of the technology that's in these devices, which we throw away almost annually, and getting it in the physical environment, and also getting it in the things that move in the physical environment. So for me, that's really the task, is how to take that kind of intelligence, put it in things maybe even more permanently, less disposably.
When you talk with the other Piaggio Fast Forward members, and I mean, it's a big contamination here. Different kind of skills, different kind of mentality, different visions about everything. Do you ever argue? I mean, and if you argue, okay, you will win because you are the stronger. But
I wish.
But no, how does it work? I mean,
we're very careful that we have one of everything, but not two of anybody.
I like it.
So nobody ever wins.
Okay.
So no, we don't have any political parties in Piaggio Fast Forward yet. So it's really the best idea has to win, because there's no consensus, or nobody has an agenda, let's say, like from architecture or from experience or from the business. There's really one of everything that's in a discussion right now. That's what's really exciting about it.
Yeah, great, because then you get the best angles from all the skills.
Yeah, and we're really thinking from a clean slate. Like, we don't have to have a product ready for September.
Okay.
We don't have that kind of pressure that's forcing us to evolve something. We're starting fresh.
Okay.
So, and that's also what's very exciting, is to bring different people, start the discussion from a clean position, and try to come up with products which are relevant.
And the first product will be in 2026, probably.
No. Then we're dead.
You'll get it there. I think pretty soon, from what I understand.
Very quickly.
Greg, thank you so much.
Thanks
Greg
so much,
Lynn,
Marco.
thank you so much.
Real
Really
pleasure.
cool, huh?